Hi guys, I just wanted to make another quick tutorial here on how to make a boat that will float and then also stay stationary along a dock per se. Give it a mooring effect. So as you can see right here with my boat that I have going here, it'll just kind of float and bob but stay right along the side of the dock here, which is what we want. I kind of messed around with this while working on my first game project here, and I found that there was a lot of little options that you can have either mistaken or just not working properly. So I'm going to go over some of those as well, even if I might not be having that issue, just so I can give you guys at least more tools to try and problem solve what's going on. But this should be a pretty easy thing to do, should only take a few minutes. So first things first, you're going to want to make sure that you enable a few plugins. If you go to Edit in the top, go to Plugins, and type in Water. You should already have the water plugin here for your boat. If you don't and you're using some other plugin, this tutorial is specifically for the water plugin and the buoyancy plugin. All right. Once you check mark both of those, it'll want you to restart your engine. Just go ahead and do that real quick, otherwise it will not work. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to make a blueprint. All right, so you can do this in your blueprint folder. It doesn't matter where you do it, as long as you know where it is, somewhere in your content drawer. All right, so you're going to right click anywhere, add in a new blueprint class. Once you have this blueprint class, you're going to make an actor. Now, if you wanted to make a boat that you could steer, you would want to make a pawn most likely. But today we're just going to be covering how to make a prop boat, not a controllable boat. That will be soon though. But for now, we're going to make an actor boat to make a prop. And we're just going to name this BP boat. For this, I'm just going to do BP boat tutorial. All right, and then you're going to want to open up this blueprint here. Let me pull that onto the main monitor. Make sure that you save it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add in a static mesh. So click the add button here at the top and type in, that's not how you spell static, and type in static mesh and add the mesh. Now, super important thing here, we want the mesh to be the root of this blueprint. All right. If it's not the root of the blueprint, none of the physics that we are going to give to the boat will work. So make sure that you grab the static mesh here, hold, and drag it onto scene root. Now, the static mesh is the root of this blueprint. So next, we're going to actually add the boat mesh. So if you come over here to the right to static mesh, type in the name of your mesh. For me, this is boat 02. And then your boat should appear in the scene for you. All right. Now, we are going to add a few arrows that we are going to use for the buoyancy part. These arrows are going to be what we attach the inflatables to that will essentially allow the boat to float. All right, so we're going to click add up here, type in arrow, and you can name it anything you want. I'm just going to name them 1, 2, 3, and 4, just because for me this is the easiest way. Once you have the arrow in the blueprint here, you are just going to drag it and angle it anywhere you want on the boat. I recommend having 2 angled towards the front, 2 angled towards the back. But you can add as many as you want. If you're looking for a very particular effect, you might find it useful to add them in different locations, say in the middle, or angled differently. But for the purposes of this tutorial and keeping it simple, we are going to just have them in the front and in the back. Once you add in your front arrow, you're going to copy and paste it and make arrow 2. And then we are going to make arrows 3 and 4. So to do that, we're just going to select 1 and 2, and we're going to copy and paste them. And then we're just going to drag them back to the back of the boat here. All right, and now that we have those towards the back of the boat, we now have 4 different arrows. So these arrows, like I said, are what we are going to attach the inflatables to. So to then get those inflatables that we're going to attach to the arrows, you're going to want to add a buoyancy component. To do that, we're going to click Add up here in the top left. I'm going to type in buoyancy. And you can just keep it named buoyancy. It doesn't matter. But the main thing that we're looking at here in the buoyancy tab is the pontoons. All right. These pontoons are what the inflatables are. So we're going to need 4 pontoons for our 4 arrows. So this will be 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then if you open up one of these indexes here, you're going to see that we have a center socket, relative location, radius, FX enabled. We are going to be using the relative location node here. All right. So we're going to essentially get the locations of each of these arrows and copy and paste them into the buoyancy relative location of each pontoon. So to do this, we're just going to copy each location and paste it into the buoyancy pontoon 1. And then we're going to do the same for arrows 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to do copy and paste, copy and paste, and copy and paste. All right, now once you have all 4 of those in, we now have 4 pontoons attached to the boat. Now, this isn't going to work yet, but I am going to show you guys what this is starting to look like here. If we are going to add this boat in, one thing to note is you never want your boat to be touching the water at the start. I recommend, especially right now, because we haven't messed with our collision shape, we don't know how big it might be, we're going to pull it up a good amount above the water. All right? Just that way we make sure that it will actually be able to interact with the water, because it's not spawning inside of the water already. Now, if we click play right now, we're going to notice it doesn't fall. And that's because we haven't actually enabled physics on this body yet. So to do that, we're going to go back into our blueprint of the boat here. And we are going to simulate, we actually need to do this to the static mesh, my bad. Click on your static mesh, go to the details panel, and you are going to simulate. You type in simulate physics and enable it. All right, now once you click simulate physics, now your boat should interact with physics. Now, there are a couple different collision presets that will kind of affect some things later down the line, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. But I just want to show you guys that, yes, just having the boat here is not enough to make it actually float, even with those pontoons. There's still a few more things that we need to do in order to make this fully functional. All pretty easy, though. All just tick marks, sorry. So, to go ahead and do this, go to the buoyancy tab. All right, and we are going to want to enable start with tick. There are other ways to do this without having to use the tick functionality, but we're not going to get into that today. This is the easy way to do it, and if you don't have a lot of these boats, you're not going to have an issue performance-wise. So one more thing too, let's go to our static mesh here, and I'm going to show you guys these collision shapes. Now, you're going to notice that on your boat, because we clicked simulate physics, the collision preset of the static mesh is going to be physics actor. Now, physics actor is fine in some ways. If we were to click play right now, we are going to see that our boat's still not floating, but we're going to get to that. Our boat's still not floating, but if we were to interact with it, we're able to walk through it. It's not a rigid full body yet. All right, and that's because of it being the physics actor collision. So I recommend, if you want to make it so that you can actually say like jump onto the boat or just have some kind of interaction with it, use block all. If you use block all, it'll make it so we can actually have a collision with the boat itself. All right, and then one other thing that's worth noting here. If you were to click play, sometimes you might get an error where it will come up and say that your collision shape is complex and not simple. There's a couple different wordings for this error. If you get that error, what you're going to want to do is open up the static mesh of the boat. All right, you're going to see here there are a couple different collision shapes that you can utilize. If you want, you can remove the collision and add on a basic capsule collision. I recommend using a basic or simplified mesh for this just being a prop. You don't necessarily need it to be very good. And then once you do that, you're going to want to scroll down to collision presets, and you are going to want to mess with the collision complexity here. So it's most likely that you have it set to use complex collision as simple. We want simple and complex. I believe that simple collision as complex will also work, but I always use simple and complex. Now, if we click play, and we come over here, now the boat actually has a solid collision shape. We can push it around, which definitely not, that's not the most desired effect, but you can adjust this by adding mass to the boat, which is something that we are about to do actually. Adding mass is going to make it so the buoyancy will be more effective and actually start working here for us. So we're going to go back into our blueprint of our boat. We're going to go to the static mesh and we're going to type in mass. Now we will tick this on. It should default to 100. That should work fine for the purposes of what we're doing today. And then when you click play, congratulations, your boat is now floating. It has a mass, so it essentially the buoyancy will know how to handle it. When you don't have mass enabled, buoyancy doesn't really know what to do because the buoyancy is affected by the mass. Mass will also adjust how deep down it is in the water or how far above the water it is. So if you're having an issue where you see a little bit of water in the bottom of your boat, decrease your mass a little bit and you're going to get that effect. Now, one more thing. We don't want to be able to push around the boat like this, right? We don't want it to just be able to drift off in nothingness, especially if we have it moored up against the dock. If it were to hit the dock, it would get pushed off. And you're going to see it's going to go endlessly, practically. So the way that we can fix this is by, well, there's actually a few ways. I think the most simple way is to just add some constraints to the essentially how hard it is for the object to be moved in a certain direction. So the two ways that we're going to be using this, or doing this, sorry, is go to your static mesh, and we're going to be enabling linear and angular dampening. So on linear dampening, I suggest a value around 3 should be fine. It's a lot, but for being moored up against a dock and we don't want it to ever move, 3 should give us the effect that we're looking for. So now if we compile and save this, and we come over here by our boat, let me actually move this boat somewhere that is a little bit easier for us to access. All right. And that should be good. All right, go ahead and save this. Water's a little bit deep, but if we put it right over here, we'll be able to jump on it and interact with it that way and see if it will get shot off in a direction. It doesn't. So we jumped on it, we rocked it, but it stayed sitting right where it's at. So we can also, just for good measure, come over here, put it in the shallows, click play. And now we can push it, but it stops almost immediately. And if you have this pressed up against your dock and you're noticing that it's still slowly drifting away, it might be because of the collision between the two. In that event, you can just crank that number higher and higher. This one that I have right here is only set to 3 and 3, and that worked fine for me. Now, there are a few other ways to do this. One of them is by adding a spring arm, but we're not going to do that today. And remember, if your boat is going into the water and you can see water in the bottom of it, I don't think that we're having that issue right now. A little bit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come back over here, and we are going to increase that mass. You're going to have to fiddle with the numbers a little bit. Usually you don't need to add a whole lot. If we're at 100 and we're getting a little bit of water, 125 looks to be sufficient. Little bit less water. On the bob, we get a little bit more in, but none at the top of the bob anymore. So you can just continue to fiddle with this number. Or actually, wait, sorry. Let's fiddle with it the right way. If we do 80, this should give us... There we go. Okay, yeah. Now we have we have none at the top and very little at the bottom. That looks better. I was trying to think why it seemed like it was almost a little bit more on the bottom of the wave. Now there appears to be no water at the bottom of the wave. So that's what we want. So you can adjust the mass, and that will allow you to get rid of the water in the bottom of your boat. Now, decreasing the mass will also make it easier to push. So you're going to have to bump up those angular and linear constraints a little bit more. All right. Well, I hope this video helped you guys out. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment, and I would be more than willing to help. With whatever I'm able to do. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed and it was helpful, please drop a like and a subscribe maybe. I will start doing some devlogs here soon. I am just getting into game development myself and just trying to share some of the tips and tricks along the way, and just kind of help with some errors that you might encounter when trying to do some of these simple things. All right, thank you guys for watching and have a good night.